Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and the movie It has been out for a little while now, and just when my pants began to dry, I decided to rewatch it. And I realized this movie is full of fascinating Easter eggs, subtle visual and production details that I missed the first time around. I know, I'm never supposed to miss anything, but I'm sorry, I had to look away from the screen for the entire movie. I'm gonna run through and point out the 30 details I found the most interesting, so let's get started. Right off the bat in the opening scene, notice the brand name of the wax Bill uses to make Georgie's paper boat. Gulf Wax is the exact same name of the brand of wax Bill uses in Stephen King's book. We also see this kind of attention to detail with the close-up of the Jackson and Witcham street signs. This corner is where all the events take place in the book, and I'll point out more examples as we go. Pennywise's encounter with Georgie is truly terrifying, and Bill Skarsgard's performance is amazing. Specifically, notice his eyes. One eye is trained on Georgie while the other looks out directly at us. This is an effect director Andres Muschietti wanted and intended to do in post for millions of dollars, but Skarsgård said he could physically pull off this trick. He also said he's an evil clown who lives in sewers, making this all super convenient. Skarsgård's eyes carry a lot of weight in this movie. Notice how after this scene, Pennywise never once blinks in the film. So cover your eyes all you want, audience, he's always watching. Also, notice what Georgie says here.
Bill's gonna kill me!
Pennywise actually throws this back at him later.
Bill's gonna kill you.
This could be foreshadowing the final battle at the end of the movie. Remember when Bill uses the bolt gun to kill its incarnation of Georgie. Later, as Bill walks home from school, he says this.
He thrusts his fist against the...
His stutter keeps him from finishing this tongue twister, but this is also from the book where Bill says the whole phrase. He thrusts his fists against the posts and still insists he sees the ghosts. Damn, that ain't easy. At the end of the movie, Pennywise actually repeats this complete phrase as a final FU to Bill in his stutter as he retreats down the well shaft.
He thrusts his fist against the...
When Mike goes to the butcher shop, notice this mural on the side of the building. We get a better look at it later, but this is alluding to another detail from Derry's violent history in the book. In 1929, the townspeople of Derry rose up and ambushed the Bradley Gang, a gang of bank robbers trying to buy ammo at the time, massacring them in a blaze of gunfire. Yeah, sure, let's commemorate this with a mural. What is this, Parks and Rec? Then when it appears to Stanley in his father's office, the look of the creepy flute-playing woman from the painting is an homage to the director's past horror film, Mama. Muschietti's visual style of Mama rushing at the camera definitely seems to have inspired the way Pennywise charges at Bill later on. In the next scene, as the boys leave Eddie's house, his mother is watching a TV program called the Derry Children's Hour. And if you listen closely, you can hear the host say that today's word is clown.
Where are you boys off to in such a rush?
You can also hear Pennywise's voice as Eddie goes in to kiss his mom on the cheek. Now, this becomes increasingly obvious as the film goes on, especially when Henry Bowers sees Pennywise on the show later. But anytime adults in this movie are watching TV, they're watching this kids show for whatever reason, and creepy audio like this was mixed in. Then when Ben hears the others riding their bikes past the library, Bill shouts, "Hi-Yo Silver away." This is a reference to the Lone Ranger, the Western hero Bill quotes in the book. Silver is the name of the Lone Ranger's horse, and you can actually see Silver written on the side of Bill's bike. Meanwhile, inside the library, I loved this creepy detail. When Ben flips through the town's history, an old woman in the background stares directly at him smiling. And each time the camera cuts back to this angle, she appears one step closer. Then when Ben turns around to follow the balloon downstairs, this woman is back looking at the stacks like normal. This woman is another incarnation of it, appearing to Ben at the precise moment he begins to feel afraid. Down in the Barrens, notice how Bill is wearing a green shirt with a logo that says Tracker Brothers. This is another reference to the book. The Tracker Brothers is the Derry shipping company where, in Chapter 2, a grown-up version of Eddie encounters Pennywise. Tracker Brothers also shows up in King's novel Dreamcatcher. As I'll get to later, pretty much all of King's works are connected in a crazy, detailed extended universe. Speaking of shirts, later, Eddie appears wearing a shirt with this killer car on it with a V on the grill. This could be a reference to Christine, the Stephen King story about a killer Ford Plymouth. Also, Richie wears a Freese's shirt. Freese's was an 80s department store in Bangor, Maine, Stephen King's hometown. Freese's also gets referenced in the book. Moving on, when Patrick dies in the sewers, notice how the red balloon says "I heart Derry." This could be a reference to the character Adrian Mellon in the book. He was a gay man who was beaten and thrown off a bridge by homophobes while wearing a hat that said "I heart Derry." Also in the book, Patrick is secretly gay and has a sexual moment with Henry, though that character detail seems to be left out from the movie. Okay, next up, when the kids go swimming in the quarry, something brushes up against their foot and Bill says it's a turtle. Another turtle shows up later in the form of a Lego figure made by Georgie. These turtles could be referencing the turtle from Stephen King's novel. So there is a giant benevolent deity figure known as the Turtle. He's later named Maturin, and he's from a dimension called the Macroverse. It carries the Earth atop its shell. Yes, it's a little weird, but it's a book, so you just kind of go with it. This turtle is a cosmic enemy to the entity known as It, and the boys commune with the turtle to learn how to defeat it. Maturin also shows up in Stephen King's Dark Tower series, but he was left out of the It movies, so we'll see if he shows up in the sequel. But I just like how they included all these little turtle details as if he's kind of watching over them. The scene with the blood exploding out of Beverly's sink was also from the book, but the way it was shot, with the blood hitting the ceiling and covering the bathroom, was an homage to the original Nightmare on Elm Street, when Johnny Depp got pulled into his bed and thrown back up as blood covering the bedroom. Later, when the boys help clean up the blood, Ben pokes his head into Beverly's room and sees the frog prince. That's the story where the princess kisses the frog and turns him into a prince, which foreshadows the end of the movie, when this frog kisses the princess to bring her back. Moving on to this scene in the town square on the 4th of July. In the background is this big statue of Paul Bunyan. In the book, this statue comes to life to taunt Richie. And actually, a Paul Bunyan statue does exist in real life in Bangor, Maine, and it has creeped out all the locals. Now, one of my favorite details is this clown in the background. Now, it's this moment that Richie reveals his fear, clowns, which is a change in the book that I'll talk about in a bit. But look closely, this clown is being played by Bill Skarsgard. Crazy, right? Like, notice how none of the other kids on stage interact with him. They probably can't see him because it is taking the form of a different clown other than Pennywise, just to screw with Richie and the others. And actually, his specific type of clown wardrobe was modeled on the serial child killer John Wayne Gacy, who worked as Pogo the Clown. Yes, Gacy and Pennywise alone are pretty much responsible for ruining clowns for everyone. Next, Pennywise jumping out of the projector is another possible Stephen King reference to another story of his called The Sundog. In that, a dog jumps out of a picture, and here Pennywise crawls on all fours and growls at them kind of like a dog. Inside the well house, Richie goes into this room filled with clown dolls. You know, the room that people just have in their houses, I guess. And on the floor, there's this little Easter egg, a doll version of the 1990 Tim Curry Pennywise. Also, when this Pennywise jumps out of the casket, he says, "Beep, beep, Richie." This is another subtle nod to the book. In order to get Richie to shut up with the jokes, Ben comes up with the phrase, "Beep, beep, Richie," which becomes a running joke. They don't say it in the movie, but here Pennywise is using it to mess with his head. Now, before I mentioned the other Richie change with his fear, now in the book, the losers watch the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which leaves Richie with a fear of werewolves. In the text and in the 1990 miniseries, it takes the form of a werewolf along with other Hollywood movie monsters. And although we don't really see that in this movie, this shot of Pennywise's hand as werewolf claws split out of it definitely seems like a nod to that part of the book. And later in the sewers, it briefly takes the form of another Hollywood movie monster, a mummy, as it attacks Ben. When they come back to the house later, Richie picks up and smashes this empty beer bottle. Check out the label, Bob Gray's. Now in the book, Pennywise has gone under several aliases over the years, one of whom is Bob Gray, and I guess he's into microbrewing. Meanwhile, down in the sewer, Pennywise hypnotizes Beverly by having her look down its throat. Now these three lights that we see are further explained in the book. They're called the Deadlights. These are the actual true form of the entity known as It, and they're supposed to kill anyone who lays eyes on them, though in the movie they only hypnotize Beverly. Now during this final battle with Pennywise, notice how at one point his arms transform into giant pointy claws. Now this could be a reference to its final form in the later adult part of the book as a giant spider. So these claws could be a tease for what we'll see in chapter 2 of the movie. And speaking of sequel predictions, there's one final interesting detail in this closing scene, but it involves some major events that happen to these characters, so skip to this time if you haven't read the book and you want to stay completely unspoiled. Okay, after the losers make their blood oath and vow to return to Derry if the monster ever returns, pay close attention to the order in which the characters leave. Stanley leaves first, then followed by Eddie. This is foreshadowing the order of these characters' deaths as adults. In the book, Stanley takes his own life when he realizes It is returned, and then Eddie rejoins the other losers in Derry in their mission to kill It, but he gets killed during the battle with the monster. The editing here even kinda implies this death connection. Notice how the cross dissolve makes it look like Stanley is fading away as he departs. In fact, this may be the last time any of these kids see Stanley. And finally, a lot of people have said that comedian John Oliver made a cameo in this movie as someone seen in the town's diner, maybe? But honestly, I couldn't find him. There's no scenes in this movie that take place in a diner or near one, and I scanned all the wide shots of the Derry streets and the windows, but no luck. So let me know if you spot him. Do you think it would have benefited from more detail from the novel's mythology, like the turtle, the macroverse, the deadlights? Personally, I love this film for what it was, and I was just happy the movie paid tribute to Stephen King's universe of details in these subtle ways. But I want to turn it over to you. Comment down below with your thoughts on these connections to the book, or tweet me at Erik Voss, or follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. You can also connect with us through Star Stardust, posting your reaction and tagging @NewRockstars so we can feature you on our weekly show, The Need to Know. Download the Stardust app by clicking on the link below and check out our feed for an additional bonus Easter egg in it that I didn't get to. Like and share this video and subscribe to New Rockstars for deep dives into all the movies you love. And if you really like us, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our donors, especially Kelly Hopper. Happy Halloween, everyone! Hope this video gave you a spooky scare, and thanks for watching. Wait a minute.